Zacks Know Your Options, a weekly overview of unique option strategies and ideas designed to help you beat the market no matter which direction it's going. Now we're going to talk about time in relation to options with our options expert, Kevin Matras, who joins me here. So you and I have been chatting up options long enough for me to know that time is an important factor when you're talking about options, right?
Yeah, it's a critical element. And, you know, I mean, I believe it is one of the most important things. First, you have to decide, you know, if you're bullish or bearish on a stock. Then you pick your strategy. But aside from deciding whether or not you're going to buy a call or buy a put, whatever, the amount of time you purchase is an absolute critical element, because if you run out of time on your trade, it's game over. So very, very important.
All right, so you seem to have a unique way of explaining this whole time concept here. I don't think I've ever heard it explained quite this way before.
You know, first off, as a rule of thumb, I would say when you are deciding which option to buy, always err on the side of getting more time. But yeah, you're right. The thing that we're going to go over, it's a very unique way of deciding how much time you should get. I didn't create it. I read about this many years ago, but it just made so much sense. It shaped the way I, decide which options to buy, and I wanted to share it here.
Okay.
So check it out. I got some slides here. So let's just take a look at a hypothetical purchase.
Okay.
So let's say you're buying stock XYZ,
Right.
and let's take a look at 3 hypothetical positions.
All right.
So let's say that you have a February 90 call. Let's say you paid $6 and you get 5 weeks of time. The other one is, let's say you're doing an April 90 call and you get 13 weeks of time.
So 13 weeks of time means expiration time.
Yeah, 13 weeks until expiration,
Okay.
correct?
All right.
And then you have another example, which is a July 90 call. You're paying $12 in premium, and you have 26 weeks to hold on to that option until that one expires.
Got it.
So if you're buying an option, this is the decision that everybody is faced with. Do I buy the nearby? Do I buy the one with a couple of months out? Do I go further out? This is what everybody has to contend with.
Right.
And so the thought process is, okay, if I'm bullish a stock, I probably am expecting that market to move right away. But what if it doesn't? You may have to wait around longer to see the market do what you had expected it to do. But when you're buying an option, it's different than buying a stock, because you can buy a stock and it could go sideways forever. Not ever, but years and years,
time,
and then
yeah.
finally goes up and it's, oh, I'm profitable, everything is fantastic. But with options, you have to be right on the direction. You also have to be right on the time. So will it move X amount between when you bought that option and when it expires? So many people will skimp on an option because they believe it's going to go up, they think it's going to happen right away, and they believe, going further out is going to cost me an extra couple of $100, so I don't want to do it. But oftentimes just that extra couple of $100, the extra few weeks of time can be the difference between making money and losing money in your position.
All right, let's get to the unique part.
Okay, so let's take a look at the February call. So if you have a February 90 call, you paid $6 for it with 5 weeks of time, right? You would divide that $600 by 5 weeks, and that equals $120 per week. So essentially, you're paying $120 for each week of time that you've purchased. Now let's go to the April call. If you did the April call at $9 and you have 13 weeks of time, $900 divided by 13 weeks, that means you're paying $69.23, so approximately $69 per week of time that you've purchased.
Okay.
Then you've got the July 90 example.
Right.
$12 was your cost, but you got 26 weeks to hold on to this thing. $1,200 divided by 26 weeks means you're paying roughly $46 for each week of time that you've purchased. What this illustration shows is that the July call with the most time, even though it is more expensive, is your best bet because you're only paying $46 for each unit of time that you're purchasing in comparison to paying $69 or in comparison to paying $120. Now, if let's just say you believe that the July is a little bit too expensive, right? You don't need all of that time. The middle option, which is the April option is still your better bet than the February. And if you look at it on a per unit basis, you're paying only $46 versus, or excuse me, $69 versus $120 versus of time that you've purchased. So when you're going further out, you're getting another crack at seeing the options work for you, but it just makes good financial sense because if basically you're paying for the amount of time you have to hold on to an option, I would much rather buy or pay $46 for each week of time that I've purchased, as opposed to $120 for each week of time that I've purchased. Plus two, when you have more time, you're also avoiding that very critical area of time decay. So one thing that everybody has to know is that time decay accelerates the closer you get to expiration. So if let's say you bought an option with, let's say, 5 or 6 weeks of time, really you're only holding on to that option for maybe a couple of weeks, but then you're into that 30-day danger red zone. And I personally like to get rid of any stock within that 30-day danger period because that's when you see time decay really accelerate and it will just ravage your option. So if you trade the same way, if you're really only buying, let's say, 5 weeks at a time, in theory, you really only have a couple of weeks to hold on to that thing before you have to amscray anyways. Getting additional time is one of the absolute best things you can possibly do for your options trading. And this is going to mean the difference between making money and losing money. And I would say the number one killer for novice options traders, and I see this all the time, is that they just don't buy enough time. They get too close to expiration. The stock actually goes the way they had been expecting all along, but they've just run out of time, or it doesn't go up enough within that allotted time to overcome the premium they paid for it. So the takeaway on this whole thing, the moral of the story is that always, always, always buy more time than you think you need.
Yeah, and this is kind of an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, it is.
All right, we need to amscray out of this segment.
Got it.
In the meantime, I will let everybody know before we do that there's a written version of this on our website, Zacks.com. It's in the options section. Get on over if you're not there already and check it out. And all of the information in the options section of our website is information to help you know your options. With Kevin Matras, I'm Terry Ruffalo.